Hi again then guys, and welcome back to the Automotive News Roundup, and this is actually a story which I spoke about months ago in this same series, but now we have our first full official look at the forthcoming 2021 all-electric Hummer. I was hoping they'd call it something like the Hummer H4. It appears for the moment that they're calling it the GMC Hummer EV. Not quite as catchy, but there you go. In terms of spec, we already knew some of it, 1,000 horsepower. It looks now to have actually 986, which is kind of crazy to think that we're now living in a year where trucks, electric trucks no less, have the same power that the Veyron came out with in the earlier 2000s. It's kind of crazy when you think of it that way. Now, one of the controversial things about this truck's specs when it was first announced was the torque figure. They quoted 11,500 pound-feet of torque, which is insane. Again, a Veyron at the time had like 1,000 pound-feet or thereabouts. This is 11.5 roughly times that amount. And of course, those who actually know what gearboxes do as a torque converter called BS on that to some degree, because of course that's after the torque has gone through the gearbox, because it's multiplied before it gets to the road wheels, as literally any car with a gearbox, electric or otherwise, does. So the reality is it does not have 11,000 pound-feet, it has that at the wheel. So any car has more torque at the wheel. The result of that is it's probably got more like 1,000 pound-feet at the motors. That's not exactly a bad thing though. And that torque and power combined, of course, with all-wheel drive and having that instant response of electric power and just throttle in general, allows the car to probably do 0 to 60 in about 3 seconds. That remains fully to be seen. They are quoting a rough fuel range, if you want to think of it that way, battery range really, of 350 miles, which is pretty good, especially for a Hummer, and for the most part it gives you guilt-free motoring. Now, let's not talk about the manufacturing side of things, because that tends to still pollute the atmosphere, but the car itself is better for that side of things, much like the Tesla and the Rivian as well. Now, some of the other things we know about it are pretty interesting. It has multiple camera views, which you can access from the interior, including underneath the body of the car as well, which is going to help out with sharp rocks, etc. for off-roading, and chances are you're going to do at least some of that if you buy a Hummer. And as well, something which is arguably more interesting, especially for a Hummer, makes it practical in cities, is it has permanent four-wheel steering, which allows it to essentially crab steer sideways at low speeds, which would also make parking very easy. Ultimately, the size of this electric Hummer is not quite as gargantuan as you might have expected, but again, that's kind of a good thing in effect. It means you can have it as a more attainable model, and it doesn't stand out quite as much. There is also an argument to be made, though, that's kind of the point of a Hummer, to stand out. So I can understand why some hardcore Hummer fans would hate this car. Personally, I love it, because I just love the idea of having futuristic and ridiculously old-school thinking combined, and a Hummer that's all electric is about as extreme as you can go into that. But ultimately, we have more of a look into the car's design, a look into its spec, a look into its technology, and all that remains to be seen really is to see how it compares in terms of sales to something like the Tesla or the Rivian. Ultimately though, of course, stick around on the channel for more automotive news related to this car and otherwise, and until next time I'll see you then, but for now, as always, thanks for watching.